Finally, the Kansas City Chiefs have added a wide receiver to the roster. We'll discuss what type of impact we can expect from Richie James going into the 2023 regular season and if this affects the Kansas City Chiefs draft strategy. But before we do get into all of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chiefs related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. Now I know, Chiefs Kingdom, this isn't the wide receiver you asked for, but this may be the wide receiver you need, as the Kansas City Chiefs have signed Richie James Jr. to a contract deal this Friday. The contract details aren't out yet, but as we all have been watching throughout this offseason is the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver depth has been dwindling down with the departures of Juju Smith-Schuster, McCole Hardman, and Justin Watson. The Kansas City Chiefs now need to start creating depth on this roster. And we knew it would be kind of guys like this that we would sign and also that we would address in the draft with the wide receiver position. Now I know a lot of us are hoping for those big name guys, whether it be a DeAndre Hopkins, whether it be a Odell Beckham Jr., or if you're just aiming for the fence and trying to hit a home run and get a random trade out there, we are hoping for a number one receiver to come to the Kansas City Chiefs. But as we mentioned plenty times on this channel, Brett Veach, Coach Reed have high hopes for guys like Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. And now those hopes are starting to kind of settle well with Chiefs Kingdom as they see Patrick Mahomes, Sky Moore, Justin Ross, all in Texas, all slinging, throwing the ball, getting their craft right. It's kind of something we witnessed last year as well. And it's also a very cool sight to see that Patrick Mahomes has that kind of relationship where he can bring the guys to his hometown and basically try to perfect their craft and try to go back to another Super Bowl and hold the Lombardi again. And he knows these are very young guys. So to get these valuable minutes and hours in with these dudes before OTAs and training camp is huge. And it's also huge that Brett Veach is adding guys like Richie James, because as I view it right now, yes, it's not a big time name, a sexy time player that can be hitting the field, but also he can be a key contributor. We saw it last year when the Kansas City Chiefs brought in Justin Watson. We all didn't make much of it, but then when he started practicing with Mahomes, and the Mahomes was like, who is this white boy running fast? And then we're like, okay, maybe Justin Watson can be a contributor. And for the better part of the year last year, he did have some splashy plays. And that could be something Richie James can be as well. Honestly, I think he's an upgrade over a guy like Watson, and then you can basically fill the hole with him and McCole Hardman. His production last year in limited time, and then it started increasing at the end of the year, was he had over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's basically what McCole Hardman has been providing for the Kansas City Chiefs, and the big factor in it is he is valuable in special teams on punt return and kickoff return. What does that mean? That means we won't see Sky Moore out there, but we already knew that. We won't see Kadarius Toney out there too, which is huge, because one thing Chiefs Kingdom has been clamoring about this whole offseason was Kadarius Toney can't stay healthy. Well, the way to keep Kadarius Toney healthy is make sure he just has his snaps and it's on the offensive side of the ball. Make sure he is limited on kickoff and punt returns unless it is crucial situations. That's why you bring in experienced returners, and you make sure special teams does not have the struggles it did last year. And that is something Richie James excelled in San Francisco and also in New York. What I like about Richie James, again, I don't know too much about Richie James, but what I have seen is he does remind me of a McCole Hardman replacement. Does it mean he's going to be a number one wide receiver? No. And don't hope for that either. But you can hope for the splashy plays here and there, and you can hope for those consistency catches that Justin Watson provided, that McCole Hardman provided. This is the type of depth that Brett Veach brings to the roster and makes sure that, hey, we need these kind of dudes on the field. That way we can keep contending year in and year out for Super Bowl and championships. Just look at what Brett Veach has done this offseason with the signings of like Mike Edwards, Drew Tranquill, and now Richie James. Drew Tranquill, you may say he is a bigger free agent signing, but I will bunch him in there too, because these are all probably going to be one-year deals, and they will all be key contributors going into this season. Brett Veach loves to throw on those one-year deals and have these guys ball out and make their money for a different team next year, or maybe, possibly, the Kansas City Chiefs can sign him. I think this is a very, very positive move. I know Chiefs Kingdom is still hoping for a wide receiver number one, but you could still focus on the draft, and that's where we're going to dive in right now. Just because you sign a guy like Richie James does not affect your draft strategy whatsoever. If there's a guy at pick 31 or that falls into the 20s that Kansas City may like, Zay Flower, Jackson Smith and Jigba, those type of guys, Jordan Addison, if they're in the 20 range and Kansas City falls in love with them, best believe the Chiefs will trade up and get their guy. Richie James does not change anything about that. And also, the Kansas City Chiefs will be drafting probably by best player available. We saw it last year when we all wanted a pass rusher in round one. We got it with George Karlaftis, but we got that little bit of surprise when the Kansas City Chiefs traded up and got Trent McDuffie. Brett Veach will always keep you on your toes and be like, I know what's best for this team. That's why the signings of guys like Richie James, Mike Edwards, and Drew Tranquill, they may be under the radar type of signings right now, but best believe you will see them on Sunday and you will see them making huge impacts for the Kansas City Chiefs and helping them get W's and advancing in the playoffs. Now, I wanted to close this video off with a contract extension. Not a Kansas City Chief player, but the Tennessee Titans extended defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons to a 4-year, around $94 million deal, and it's around, I want to believe, $22 to $23 million yearly. Now, why am I mentioning this on this channel? Well, we have seen time in and time out, and we're going to continue to see it as well, that these defensive tackles are getting paid this offseason. Daron Payne, Jeffrey Simmons now, Jerron Hargrove signing with the San Francisco 49ers. You're going to have now 2 more with Dexter Lawrence and Quinnen Williams. This all leads up to Chris Jones. And it's going to be interesting to see how Brett Veach attacks this. And I think with Jeffrey Simmons' contract, that still lines up for Chris Jones. I was nothing too crazy. It was nothing out of the ordinary, kind of like last year with Tyreek Hill, when Christian Kirk, Devontae Adams, and the Kansas City Chiefs could not afford that price range. The Kansas City Chiefs will make Chris Jones the second richest defensive tackle in the league and in NFL history. And that's what Jeffrey Simmons is right now. He's making a little less than $25 million. And that's what analysts, Chiefs Kingdom, and Chiefs analysts have been predicting Chris Jones' price range to come around. It's $25 million a year. You're thinking around 4 years, $100 million, whatever that guarantee money looks like. So Jeffrey Simmons' contract doesn't throw it out of whack, but I would like to kind of see the Kansas City Chiefs get going on that deal. I don't want Chris Jones to play a whole year and then go into next year and then we're like, okay, what are we doing? We might have to franchise him. Is he going to be trade bait? I want to get that resolved now. And I know it may be crazy to Chiefs Kingdom to think that that could happen, but it was crazy to think that could happen with Tyreek Hill as well. And I can see Brett Veach kind of trying to play his cards. He does it with every player. He will see what their worth is, and he will try to get the best contract. And sometimes the players aren't happy with that. I think this is way, way different than Tyreek Hill. I have seen people mention, I could see Brett Veach trading him. And I could see it as well, but also, that should not happen. Tyreek Hill was an asset to Patrick Mahomes. It's not taking anything away of how talented Tyreek Hill is, but it was proven this year. Patrick Mahomes can win with whoever you give him weapon-wise and get that Lombardi. Chris Jones is the Patrick Mahomes of this defense, and if you move him, that defense is completely different. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You need to extend the dude, and you need to give him the money he's worth. And I've also seen Chiefs Kingdom clamoring as well as like, well, he's going to be pushing 30, so maybe Brett Veach is going to be like, do I really want to throw a rich contract at him? And I get that too. But just because he's going to be turning 30, you don't see those wheels slowing down. And even with the previous year's production and this year's production as well, you double team him and he still has a win rate. Even if he's not getting to the quarterback, he still has an impact. I don't care what it looks like. Just sign him to his extension that he deserves. I know most of these extensions are for the future, not what you have done, but also it is. Like, that's how a player earns their contract, but what they've done on the field. It's not, everything in the future. Because if it was, then a lot of these players wouldn't get paid accordingly. So I believe that even with Chris Jones, pushing 30 years old, he's still a top defensive tackle in this league. He has shown he loves the kingdom, he loves Arrowhead, and he wants to retire as a Kansas City Chief. So I don't see what's holding it up. So Brett Veach, could we please sign the man? Because I feel like as days go by that something could happen and things could start shifting. I just want to see Chris Jones become a Kansas City Chief for life and be inked on paper. But with that, Chiefs Kingdom, I am going to close this video out. You let me know how you feel about the signing of Richie James Jr. Does it excite you? Which I don't know if that's the word to use, but I'm happy we got wide receiver depth, and you best believe the Kansas City Chiefs are still going to address the wide receiver position in the draft. Also, let's hear some comments that you have about Chris Jones. I know a lot of us would love to extend him, but do you think he's worth that high dollar point going into the later portion of his career? With that, I will be checking out, but before I do, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, and if you did like this video, please give me that big thumbs up. Y'all take care. Peace.